Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Gibson. I am back. And this time, instead of doing norm therapy sessions with patients, our good friends Bobby and Montes, we're going to be conducting a series of interviews called Socialization of Abuse. How is abuse socialized in our society, how it affects us, and how we impact others? This is important. And I'll be talking to professionals in the industry, all over the industry, principally a lot of people who work with norm therapy. You notice I use the word with. We're a very inclusive organization. And one of the first people who will be meeting with us is our very special guest today. Matter of fact, she is the first person. That's Kim Carpenter. She's a manager of Norm Therapy department at Norm Therapy, as well as in Abuse Refuge Inc., which is the nonprofit, a 501c3 public charity. We take donations, everyone. Keep that in mind. And we'll be talking to Kim about a variety of subjects. She's an amazing lady. She's been running the department the last few years, a couple of years or so. She has a great intellect, a wealth of experience. She's from training and development, human resources, business management, business owner, pageantries throughout her life, and just the list is endless. And her partial bio is listed in, of course, our YouTube channel that you'll be able to just scroll down once it's sworn to memory on YouTube. But she's an amazing human being, and we'll talk about all the major facets of her life, as well as we'll talk about her impact on the abuse care community. This is a term that we've pretty much solidified and coined. The abuse care industry and the abuse care community is a place where abuse principally is spotlighted on the patients around the world, and we have norm therapists on every continent, trained norm therapists. Yes, we've been very busy, and most of that has been under the helm and tutelage, as well as leadership of Kim Carpenter, an amazing person, and I think you'll get to like her just as much as we all do. We'll talk about a variety of things. So without any further ado, please put your questions in the questions area. And of course, make sure if you want something asked of Kim or myself, we'll be more than happy to accommodate during this session. It's about 1 hour long, so sit back and relax. I'm going to have some coffee here, and I almost dropped it out of my hand on a white shirt. That would have been kind of funny, hilarious even. So I'll ask Kim to come in now. Hey, Kim, are you there? Hi, Kim. How
Hey,
are you?
Michael.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Well, we're finally in a setting where we'll just talk, and we'll have some good engagement, I'm sure. We talk all the time, so the audience should know that we have a very communicable environment where everybody communicate very well in the organization, and we're a very open and down to earth bunch. Tell us something. Tell us a little bit about yourself, the synopsis, and I'll go into the more specific questions and answers over the next hour.
Sure, Michael. Thank you. And good to be here today and joining everyone. Hi out there in the live world. A little bit about myself. I started with Arrow in August of 2021 as the T&D manager and moved into the first cohort, the Pioneer cohort, with Michael as the master instructor of the NTIS program. Kelly was
Wow.
a part of that as well. So yeah, as we are just graduated our 13th and 14th cohort to look back and go, wow, okay, the first cohort, that was a while back, but it seems like a short time ago, but we've done so much in that time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Kim, you've been instrumental. Everyone at the company just loves you. And I've been trying to articulate it to everybody. But what makes you so darn lovable? Why do everybody just follow your lead and love you to death? In your opinion, I think I'll give a synopsis later, but please tell us.
It's something I feel blessed every day to be a part of and to know that I think I've wanted this for so long, to always be in a leadership role and to work with others. Because to me, a leader, rolls your sleeves up and gets right in there with everyone instead of just managing circumstances and different day-to-day projects. So having that empathetic side, I think, with everyone, getting to know them, know that we really care, because that's what Arrow and Norm Therapy is all about. That compassion really stands out from both you and Kelly on down. And I think that's a big part of it. It's just getting to know people on that personable level, especially in the virtual environment that we work.
I know, isn't that, but we do have the immediacy of information and contact. The
Yeah.
minute we say something, people get it in about 7 different locations on the planet. So we
Mhm.
sometimes get people from Kenya, from Philippines, and Africa, and United States, all on the same call, and we're getting the same information. I love that synchronicity in our organization.
Mm.
What are some of the most difficult things about being the head of norm therapy worldwide, pretty much? So other than me, you're it. So there you go. So tell me, what is it? What are some of the challenges you have, especially dealing with abuse cases and abused individuals? Can you share that with us?
Sure, and that kind of stands on its own as one regard of just, the cases that we hear and from our volunteers even, because a lot of people come to us volunteering, but they've also have a story to tell and to be able to share that in a compassionate environment, in a brave space, as we always call it. And and then learn and grow from it and learn from one another because maybe someone's story is similar to ours, but yet different. Everybody's unique to their own situations, but just to help one another grow from that and to learn from those experiences. And it's a big part of what we do in norm therapy when we work with our victims and survivors in hearing their stories. We're exposed to all types of abuse. We deal with 21 types of abuse at Arrow, and just to hear all the different stories, and just when you think you've heard everything, you hear something different, and to be able to be exposed to that and share in that with everyone is a true blessing.
It truly is. You know, we all go through pain. I tell you, I've always regarded pain from my old military days. We used to say things like "no pain, no gain," or we say things like, pain is only something that goes away. Either you die or you heal. It's up to you. And I've lived by that most of my life. I just deal with pain as it comes. But sometimes our victims and survivors that come to us, they've had such unorthodox methods for getting over their abuse, to sometimes even hurting themselves.
Mm.
You know, traditional therapy, norm therapy. How do you see us playing a role with these people versus or in concert with traditional therapy?
I think it's that experiential knowledge that we all carry and in being norm therapists, in that we can share with the victims and survivors bits and pieces of our story. It's not all about us in the sessions, but we're able to kind of acknowledge where they're at and what the pain they've been through, and share with them that knowing they're not alone in this, because you feel alone when you've been abused. You feel like you have nowhere to turn, and norm therapy and Arrow have always offered that hand up. So it's going to get rough in some of the
I like that
sessions because
term.
we're
We
going to
use that a
take
lot,
you
don't we?
right.
Hands
Yeah.
up. Yeah, yeah, hand up.
It's going
But
to take you down some roads of emotions and pathways that you didn't want to explore. You hide behind your lies and your facades and whatever else you have going on, people pleasing, all those things, all those traits that victims will carry, and we expose them a little bit. So it gets a little raw. But, so many times we've had beautiful testimonies of people that have gone through the services and gone through, even if they're volunteering in our training as a victim and survivor, it just the turnaround in their life that they have in that short time.
most of them have never articulated their abuse to anyone. And the
Yeah.
people with whom they've spoken or shared their abuse don't always get them because most people don't understand your abuse. They understand their abuse. And that's oftentimes put up walls between the victims. And they can be girlfriends or a guy and a girl or two guys that are victimized, hell, have been victimized in some way, but yet they don't identify with each other's abuse because they don't know it. They don't understand it. They can't put their finger on it. How do you think we as an organization do in that regard and making people understand not only the abuse that they're suffering, but what are the potential ways of overcoming that abuse and extricating it from their lives? How do you think we do on that? What mark do we get, in your opinion? And you're the manager, you're the head honcho, and you know everybody's grade even. So, so who better to ask?
I may be a little bit biased in that, but I think it's a 5-star rating. And I hear that from the testimonials in people that have gone through to become norm therapists, people that have gone through victim and survivor sessions as the victim, and to hear their testimonials when they come out. it just circles back to everything that you've created and developed within norm therapy, all the trademarked services that we do, those tools and techniques that we teach our norm therapists to utilize in those sessions, one-on-one with the victim and survivor. We have the individuals in Overwatch, so they're learning and they're getting exposed to those sessions as well. So it all just kind of correlates together and comes together, and it gives that learning experience, but for everyone. And then the victim and survivor comes out knowing life skills that they probably didn't have before. They didn't learn when they were growing up. They forgotten about, or they just didn't have that from their parents or whoever was their primary role model as they were growing up. So a lot of good things come out of the sessions.
Well, I've listed part of your bio in the norm therapy page of this YouTube channel. So whenever it's published, it's published now live, but when all this stuff is available to everyone, you'll be able to drop down and see that you suffered quite a few abuses yourself in your life. Do you want to share anything about any of those? It's only
Sure. So yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about our environment is it's always safe and brave. Um, yeah, and it's also been, we've got a blog. I'll put a little plug in, shameless plug, on our Medium. And my story's been written a few times by some of our editorial and journalists, and just bits and pieces is what I've shared. But it started early in childhood. My stepmother was abusive, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And so I had that. I've had other family members that were abusive to me as well. And that just kind of imploded throughout my life and my relationships. And it kind of came to uh, a head when I had a relationship with a narcissist. I was in that for several years and took me to rock bottom. And so the only way out of that is up, and to have those skills and to learn all those things that you need to apply to your life and come out of your um, cubby hole, or your comfort zone, and get exposed to who you truly are at the core. So yeah, I've experienced a number of the abuses that we do cover, so I have a better understanding of what individuals may be going through as well.
what was that, if you don't mind?
Yep.
I'm not going to drag anything out of anyone ever. And plus, you normally speak 2 miles ahead of me anyway. So, um, well, what, how can you describe your lowest point? When you knew you had enough, you didn't really have where to turn, but you decided to turn somewhere. What did you do first? What did you work on first?
Reconnecting with my mom and stepdad was one of my first things that I did, because I was in a relationship with a narcissist. They kind of isolate you from friends, family, coworkers, jobs, you name it. You become isolated, and so that was my first thing that I did when I knew I was at rock bottom, nowhere to turn. I called my mom and my stepdad, and my stepdad's first words were, "You ready to leave?" I'm like, "Yep, come get me." And that's where it started from there.
You know, sometimes one of the things that I've been sharing with people, and I've observed this over the past 3 decades in developing norm therapy, is that once you remove a person from an abusive circumstance, they automatically seem to get much better. As soon as they're no longer in that space or under that thumb or fist, if you will,
Mhm.
they normally get better on their own almost immediately. You see signs of life beginning to emerge. Now, your psyche isn't where it should be yet, and
Yeah.
your sense of balance isn't there, but you're walking on your own 2 feet, and you're feeling your own pain instead of the pain from someone else.
Hmm.
It's a big difference when somebody's applying pain and when you can deal with your own pain. It's a big difference.
Yeah.
The thing I like to bring up about as a point to people is norm therapy is different. Like you said, we self-disclose than traditional therapy.
Mm.
But also in another way, that it doesn't really leave behind that mental health care stigma that,
Yeah.
I'm schizophrenic, or I'm paranoid schizophrenic, or I'm manic depressive, or I'm
Hmm.
sociopath. That mental defectiveness
Hmm.
that normally goes along with mental health care. And that's by design, according to their DSM. That's by design, that people are categorized and diagnosed with certain conditions. We're saying that there should not be a condition associated with abuse other than the type of abuse, because the underlying thread to all abuse, no matter what it is of course, we talk about this all the time, it's fear. There must be an element of fear involved with every case of abuse on the planet, or the word fear will have a different kind of meaning to some people, especially if they're sociopathic in nature, because oftentimes some sociopaths and some narcissists and some abusers themselves can be abused
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So we look at every aspect of abuse. But one of the things I'm trying to share is that there's no real stigma, because if you're getting beat up every day, Kim, and we've talked about this and we have cases where people get hurt, that's not the key issue all the time. It's not how you're in the situation, it's how you're seeing yourself through it and out of it. And people are not stuck on being so weak that they have to have a condition to go with their particular abuse, although sometimes they are psychologically impaired as a result of being abused. And sometimes mental health care and mental therapy works. It does. Mental health therapy works. But with norm therapy, once we remove you from the abuse, normally you get better. And when you do get better, we start to help you with the life lessons I think that you somehow or another missed. You know, when daddy said, sit on my lap
Yeah.
and let me talk to you. And young lady, if a man doesn't love you as much as I love you right now, then he's the wrong guy for you. And
Yeah.
this is why, and blah, and blah, and blah. Sometimes the daughter misses those lessons. She goes into these relationships feeling inadequate because she didn't get that lesson. She didn't get that protection. She didn't get a feeling of what a real man was and how he really treats a woman, treats his spouse or mate. She really didn't get that. So whomever was the first guy to say, I love you, even though he bullied her or beat her or kept her down, she begins to synchronize her sensitivities toward that type of person. And you oftentimes hear women say those things. One of our leaders in our organization say, why do I have a sign on my head that says, you know, bring all narcissists to me? Yes, you
Right.
do. You absolutely do, because that's all
Mhm.
you know are narcissists. You know, anyway, but back to you. I want to share all that because I wanted the audience to know that we talk about a lot of things. Abuse is like in our blood these days. You said earlier that you've always wanted to be in the kind of leadership role where you made a difference and where norm therapy was something where you not only lead people through your great knowledge, but you lead them through example. Can you tell us some of the examples you show people? Because I almost at the end of every graduating class or every single person that leaves or joins the organization, they say you left them with something, some good something that got them through the day or through their lives. What have you consistently been able to do with people? Because I hear all kinds of things that you do, but what's one of your more consistent themes with the people that you care about in the organization, the people that you don't even know sometimes, that they always seem to be left with a sense of, I'm going to be okay. How do you do that?
I think it's giving people what they need and just being able to see that they're going through something, or a lot of times victims won't speak up. They would just be like, I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm doing all right. And I think you have to read between the lines sometime and say, okay, are you really okay? What's going on? That kind of a thing. And to give people what they need, to just be that ear, to listen to them vent or say what they need to say. Or maybe they're open to receiving some advice and you're saying, you know what? I've been through this before. Here's what I did. It worked for me. It might not work for you, but find something that works for you and kind of lead from that regard, and giving people kind of what I needed and wanted when I was growing up and didn't have, and to be able to see that in others too, and to just fulfill that need for them.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears. I like that. We're going to come back to it. We've been working with Norm Therapy 1.0 plus for a long time.
Mhm.
We're about to launch Norm Therapy 2.0, training for norm therapists, or Norm Therapy Intake Specialist course is official name. Tell the world how much work you put into that thing.
A lot of love and hard work and sweat and blood and all that good stuff. Tears have gone into this, and it's been a collaborative effort. I've been, very proud to lead this project and lead others through creating what we have today and knowing that we can still expand upon it. I look at, when we first started, we went through with you and it seemed like it was maybe 6, 8 weeks. And then we took what you had created and developed and just blew it up
Blossom.
essentially
Yeah, you did.
and turned it into what it was. And now we've taken it again, we've expanded again. So now we're going into what, 4 or 5 month long program. Then we go to a 6 month probationary training period. So we're giving individuals a full year to really soak in what we're teaching in norm therapy to become fully ready to take on victims and survivors, because we're essentially saving lives from what Kelly often says. And that's very delicate and that's very powerful at the same time too. So this program has exceeded my expectations, and it continues to grow. And we're developing the advanced program as well. I know
I
you
was
and I
hoping you
always are
mentioned that.
bouncing ideas off of one another all the time. Hey, what about this? Or what about this product? What about this? What about this? And it just keeps growing.
The advanced course, yeah, the advanced course will be for our senior norm therapists as they get up to level 6 and 7
Mhm.
levels of norm therapy. The advanced course, I mean, we have one of my favorite courses was it perfunctory engagement.
Yeah.
Why people are always finding themselves in perfunctorial engagement with people, and it doesn't mean anything, and they waste all of their time doing it, and they don't know
Yeah.
why. We have an actual course on that. We want to talk people through it and make them understand why they do the things they do and how to stop them, more importantly. And you've been very instrumental in helping us, or helping me to articulate that, as well as reduce it to writing and doctrine. And doctrine is one of the areas you handle well in the organization as well, you and your team. Uh, what people don't know are some of our plans for the future, educationally speaking. You want to talk about what we're planning on doing with norm therapy in the future, educationally speaking?
Sure. So we're looking to take this accredited, make it into an accredited program where individuals can sign up for it, receive credits for it. Maybe there's, a certain portion of the training or education that they're going through. They can take our courses, receive credits as well, and apply them into norm therapy and what they do, and really expand upon their educational experience.
Absolutely. My vision one day, and I'm sure it's yours as well, is to have, and not only an undergrad, but a master's program in norm therapy that people can receive, excuse me, those two levels, and maybe perhaps one day a PhD or a doctorate level degree as well. But of course, that's in the future. But it starts with accreditation, and we're working on that. And that's a good thing, though, that glad you brought it up. But also, um, we'll have to add some other courses to it, I think. I think we should add an abundance of mental health care courses as well.
Mm.
And then try to get some of our norm therapists not only licensed as we become accredited, we become licensed with different government bodies around the world, but become licensed norm therapists as well as being a licensed psychotherapist or a licensed counselor at the same time, or a psychiatrist or psychologist. What people don't know is we have people from the psychotherapists, medical doctors
Mm.
who are already norm therapists right now. That's the kind of credibility we have in what we've created and developed. And you're heading that effort. And that's an exciting, it's kind of like in the business world, as I raise money for norm therapy, I'm always talking about doctrine, about, procedure, about, different levels of whatever we do. And people look at me like, I've been talking to them for 1,000 years, like this is where this information goes. They got it. They know where it belongs because it's becoming so synchronized with the way we think and do things in our society as we articulate abuse. I had somebody once tell Kelly, our global executive director, and I, that they didn't know financial abuse was a thing. When we explained to them what was financial abuse, they didn't even know it was a thing. Um, and by the way, anyone who's listening, go join our abuse refuge org site, or GoArrow.org. Join And then once you're joined and you're signed in, you can click on the abuses button. And we not only have all of the abuses that we champion there, but there's a few more that we're working on. We'll talk about that in a bit as well. But you can read about the abuse and recognize the abuse in context. Like anxiety for a uh, a child that's been abused is different from the anxiety of a woman being beaten down by her husband.
True.
So we actually explain that to you in those differences. So you won't think that the anxiety you have is the same anxiety or the same depression or the same depravity that is being experienced by someone else. It's
Yeah.
not on a spectrum, but there is a linear kind of thought to it, and it's comprehensive. It's not normal linear thought where you can just jump and leapfrog, but it's definitely the type of linear thought that one thing definitely follows the other. So you want to take a look at that in context. What's your favorite fruit?
Ooh, I would say watermelon, but is that a vegetable or is that a fruit?
I know the soda, and I was just invited out a minute ago and had a little chunk of watermelon, just a little bit. Added some tasty, thirst quenching stuff.
It's got a
The
lot of
reason I
great
asked,
health properties to it.
it's the best
Mhm.
watermelon, one of
Yeah.
the best in the world. Since or type of it's an elixir, it's a crunchy elixir, if you ask me.
Hmm.
But I ask you that because you've done so many different things. You have a very eclectic background. I mean, of course, I love you to death and you're a beautiful woman, but your your career, looking at your bio, you've been Miss Florida this and Miss Teen that and Miss such and such this. I'm like, wow, I know her. She's on our team. I know her. Tell us about your experiences in that world growing up.
It was at a time when I was seeking admiration and seeking appreciation because I wasn't receiving it in my formative years. And so I just had a need to be needed, kind of a thing going on. And was also merged in with that people pleasing thing. And so pageantry seemed to be the path I wanted to take. And I did it while I was still working full time. I'd started a job in HR. So I was
Mhm.
working, I had a career, but I still craved that part of that side of things. And um, yeah, when I look back at those titles that I held, it was a fun time. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself going through that process. When I look back on it, at the time, I didn't see a lot of things. I was just like, oh, I'm a title holder, and all this joy that comes with that. But now that I know better and I do better, I look back on that opportunity and think, okay, I kind of needed to go through that to figure out who I was. And it was a good opportunity to learn about myself and to see that. And it was a good experience overall.
Did you find yourself in an environment where you didn't want to be fawned over, or you didn't want to have people just look at you for just that? Because I know you as a super intelligent woman who has her head together, her life together, and is always working on herself. Her spirit is in check. And when people are fawning over you and putting you in places where you shouldn't be or don't
Yeah.
really want to be, that tends to work its magic on your psyche and hurt you more than it helps you.
Mhm.
Did you experience any of that?
I did because sexual abuse was a part of my growing up, from small child up to my junior year in well, we called it junior high back then. Now I guess it's known as high school. But yeah, so there were several years I was dealing with that. And so I think this was kind of that outreach part of that and still wanting that admiration. But then when I would get it, it'd be like, why are you looking at me? Why those kinds of things. So it was twisted, uh, my thought processes and everything and how I perceive that. And so it took a lot of um, healing and coming through to truly understand what exactly that was and what it tied into my behaviors and my mental state and those kinds of things. So
Well, just to change the subject quick, I see this beautiful cat keep going back and forth. What's your cat's name for the audience?
I've got two. One is Jinxie and the other one is Toby. They're sisters.
Now, when growing up, what I heard even though we had quite a few cats growing up, but we had more dogs than cats. What I heard was that if a cat likes you, you're one of the most lovable people on the planet because a cat doesn't like many people. They just don't like many people. They either love you or they don't. They'll
Yeah.
tolerate you sometimes, but they either love you. Would you say your cats just love you? Would you say that?
Yeah, they do. I would say they're clingy sometimes, or wherever I'm at, they're at. I sit in my chair in the evening watching TV, and I've got one laying behind me and one laying on my legs, and sleeping at night, they're right there with me. So yeah, they're always
Cats
around.
has cats have like this really innate ability to read people rather quickly
Hmm. Yeah, they
and
do.
sense them out.
Hmm.
I don't think you're difficult to read, but I don't think you necessarily need to be read because you seem to wear your countenance and your truth on your sleeve. So people see it coming. There's no real guesswork when it comes to you. I kind of really like that a lot about you, and I'm sure everybody that come in contact with you. The reason I mentioned the cats is because it's like God protect babies, fools, and good people. You know?
Yeah.
And you're just one of those people. What people don't know is that you work probably harder than most people in the organization. I put you, Kelly, Nicole, and myself and Sid. Well, everybody works hard. Let me not single anybody out. But I mean, your job seems to never end. How do you do it?
I always go back to that quote, love what you do and do what you love. And this is something I felt like I was called to do, and it doesn't feel like work. And it's one of those things where you can dive in, take care of a project, and walk away, and you're not still carrying it. Like a lot of times, I had a lot of years in the um, public and private sector at corporations, and a lot of times you come home and you're like, oh, you dread Monday coming around the corner, and you wish the weekend was longer, and oh God, there's a meeting tomorrow. There's none of that. I haven't experienced that yet. I don't think I will with arrow or norm therapy. It's just we all do what we need to do to get the job done because we're on a mission, and I think we all see that bigger vision that you have, and we're trying to carry that forward, and you just get it done.
Well, that's a good plug for more volunteers and norm therapists. Now, the course costs money these days. We actually taught the course for the first few years without charge, and we did it through the nonprofit. I'm trying to talk into the mic so they really hear this. We did it through the nonprofit, but we'll be offering grants and a few other things to people who can't afford it as well. We're restructuring everything in 2024 so we can accommodate the financing and the investment that I've arranged and working on for Norm Therapy. Norm Therapy has an agreement in perpetuity with this particular nonprofit, Abuse Refuge Org, Go Arrow, to what? To undergird this organization and be the tool it uses to help people who cannot afford the norm therapy course or the norm therapy sessions. So we've promised that 10% of all of our space will go out without cost through the nonprofit to continue to provide that kind of service to the underserved world and even the served world on who can't actually afford our services or our course. So we're working on that. But for those who can afford it, please do. Kim and I and a whole team of eclectic and similar and dissimilar people all work together 24/7 to bring the highest quality of training, but also sessions and service. So just want you to know more about that. We're about having fun too. We laugh every
Yeah.
single day at something. Uh,
Mhm.
Kelly, and I'm going to steal Kelly's line when I introduce it, she can repeat it. But Kelly always says, Kim said that we put the fun in dysfunction. Uh, and that was one of your quotes. Everybody in the company said that, especially Kelly, because I think that you have to know this kind of pain to understand how to help somebody out of it.
Mhm.
If you're not familiar with pain of abuse, it's hard to just share with other people what it looks and smells like until you go through it. And
Yeah.
oftentimes people don't know they're in pain. They don't know they're being abused. Most of the time because they've been conditioned, they don't know that they're hurting.
Mhm.
What are some of the things you look out for when you see someone that's possibly hurting from abuse but don't know it, Kim? What are some of the things you look for?
So just to take a step back for a second into what you said earlier, about there being a lot of fear around the stigma of abuse and trying to eradicate that stigma because it's part of life. A lot of people have been exposed to that. And what I found when I came out of the abusive circumstances I was in is when you talk to someone, they're like, and especially if they haven't been through abuse, like you're saying, it's like, well, why didn't you leave? Well, why did you go back? Well, why did you? And a victim will take on that and be like, oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm shameful. You take that inward. But I kind of turned that around a little bit. And I went to the local domestic violence shelter, picked up some brochures. And if someone said that to me, I would hand them the brochure and kind of educate them a little bit on, well, here's what abuse is all about. So when you tell me, why didn't you leave? Here's why I didn't leave. It doesn't just happen like that overnight. It's a period of years, days, a month, hours that you're continually in this. Maybe there's ups and downs and all things circling around you, that you're experiencing good times, bad times, ugly times, as we say sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and to bring all that together and be able to just educate, and that's part of what we do in norm therapy and abuse refuge, especially in our social media. We're educating people on this is what abuse is, and have you experienced it before? And some people haven't. They'll come. I was talking to someone earlier, and they said that too. They're like, yeah, I went to your website and I read all these things, all these types of abuse you covered, and geez, I didn't realize I'm being abused. And so it just kind of opens up their eyes and exposes them to that side of healing or that side of growing within themselves.
And on our websites, we don't even open it as a suggestive reading. We're not trying to
Mm,
suggest you look at it, you find
yeah,
your condition, and you just match it to the abuse.
yeah,
And we don't try to be as voluminous as, let's say, the DSM. They have an abuse for every category of everything in the world. We're working with 21 abuses, and we're also bringing on, besides those 21, PTSD we're working on now, abuse for police, abuse for educators, and so forth, norm therapy.
yeah,
But if it's not mentioned on the site already. But you're right. We try to treat people, where we meet them and where we see them. And they don't oftentimes know that they've been abused. They know they're hurting, but they can't put the story we tell how, if the husband walks in every day at 3 o'clock and slaps his wife, the
mm,
first time she's gonna, you son of a bitch, blah, blah, blah. I'm leaving you, I'm going to mom, and all that. And then the next time he does it, what happens? She goes, why are you doing this to me? And then 3 months, 4 months down the road, she's like, I can't take this. I don't know what I'm gonna do. A year from now,
yeah.
he's doing this. What does she do when he walks in? She just what? She just
She turns her head.
puts her
Yeah.
cheek out and says, he's gonna slap me anyway. And they become conditioned to that, to
Mm,
the nasty talk, the down talk, the berating, the critique, the lack of control or understanding. They become accustomed to it, the manipulativeness of it. They become accustomed and conditioned. So it's difficult for them to see up or down. And they lie to themselves. Well,
mm.
can you tell our audience a little bit about pathological lying?
Well, as we learned throughout our training program, there's several reasons why someone will lie. And most likely you're protecting yourself, you're protecting others, you're embarrassed because of, telling them the truth. And a lot of times the victims will take on this so much so that they start, not only are they telling lies to others, they're telling lies to themselves. So their beliefs are now becoming limited to what they're being told and telling themselves. And then you're fighting against that to try to come out of it and find out, who you truly are. As we always like to say, finding your normal. It's not your normal, my normal, their normal. It's the victim and survivors what they're wanting to find. And so they slowly over time will see that they have been lying or they've been pathologically lying to themselves and to others over time, and they start to break away that and learn the power of their truth.
You're absolutely correct. And I love that about you. You're citing doctrine to people here today, and procedures and policies and training all together. You wear many hats at the organization, Kim. I'm very proud of you. tell people if they wanted to know more about becoming a norm therapist, don't we have like a career day or something that we scheduled? When is our next career day? Do you know? Have you got that pinned in ink yet?
We do. We've got one coming up in June and one in September. And if off the top of my head, it's that second or third week in June, but we're getting ready to start promoting it on social media. So be sure to follow our social media pages, give them that plug, and more information about that to come. So you can sign up through the various, I think it's through Eventbrite, through our Facebook, through our email. You can send us email about it, but we've grown our career day so much so we always joke about that. From the beginning, we were all just kind of norm therapists all in one room and we were practicing for what's to come. And now this last career day we had was very successful. We received several applicants into our last program that just graduated from that career day. And so we're looking to continue building upon that success and turning this one out to be even more special.
Well, one of the things I think we need to just now that come to mind as you mentioned this way, I think maybe we should say our potential salaries in the future will be ranging from such and such. Did you know that where we're starting, once we're fully funded, the salaries we're starting are level 3 norm therapists are higher than that than normal therapists, psychologists who've been doing it for 20 years. They start
And
out
they've paid for their education. That's thousands of dollars.
hundreds
And
of thousands in some cases
yeah,
in
yeah,
debt. And then
yeah.
I the last and our last graph we said it was like 42,000 or something
Mm,
is capping a lot of their salaries. And these people are working 18-hour days. They get $100 some thousand in student loans and debt, and
yeah.
they're just drowning. And yet they're supposed to be there to help other people. How? If your brain housing group is so cluttered with your own strife, how do you work with someone else's? They must be under a lot of pressure. So in the future, I think what we'll do is we'll recruit people from that industry, because there are plenty of them making that kind of
Mhm.
money, make them start out on a regular salary, much more than what they actually start with. I think we start our level 3s out at, and you don't get level 3 until after you graduate, at about 60,000 a year, if I'm
Yeah.
correct, right in there, about 60,000.
Mhm.
And I think that's a good reason to train and become a norm therapist and to use your skills as a therapist, along with the skills that we've developed in norm therapy to help abuse victims as well as other victims of abuse in different areas that we are going to be, of course, finding our way inside of in the future, like the mental health care field. Right now, no, because we're not properly licensed there as an organization, but we will be one day, and we're working towards that as well. But I think that we need to highlight the fact that you'll be probably, as we fund ourselves here shortly, you'll probably be, not probably, for sure be promoted. I think you already know I've got that in the plan, to the director of norm therapy worldwide. And then somebody will be taking your place as the manager of norm therapy department, not only in Arrow, but also at Norm Therapy Inc.
Mm.
And watching that dynamic occur will be one of my favorite things in the world, to get everybody, to get 3 Kims going, the 3 Kims. We're going to need 3 comprehensive human beings to not only be on the management side, but to be on the norm therapy and training side, and then you to run them. And then other areas as it opens, I think that the better way we can do it so we can meet the needs of the society is if we have 10, of course, managers, one for every, not abuse, but area of abuse. Like
Mhm.
we're developing norm therapy for police, we're developing norm therapy for educators, we're developing all kinds of norm therapy. And I think that management team that you develop, because you and I and a few other of us, we wrote all the doctrine, we know what we're talking about. So as we train them and get them up to speed, I think it's going to make your job much easier to deal with managers as the director, at worldwide. We think norm therapy is one of those things that come across once in a lifetime. It's a very unique field. It's very targeted towards specific kinds of people who are being abused and oftentimes abusers. I am working on and have been for quite some time on a course for abusers to stop them from abusing people, to
Mhm.
help them with their relationship with others without abuse. So that's another thing that we'll be looking for as we further saturate the market, and we will come under your auspices and your leadership as well. So, of course, I say keep your norm therapy hat on. And now I have some answers from the audience and some questions, answers. You know me, I love talking to you. You know I love talking when I get in these meetings. But we got some questions from the audience.
All right.
We have our executive director feeding me, Kelly Dean feeding me questions from the audience. So, are you ready to field some questions, Kim?
Ready.
Oh, okay. I don't know how to really put this in this. I'm just going to read them to you, okay?
All right.
Um, how has your life changed understanding the real causes of abuses that occurred in your life? And how extensive are the skills from norm therapy helping you?
I think the skills from norm therapy, one of my favorite courses, which you developed and created, was the human lie detector, and being able to understand when people are lying to you. Being a reformed people pleaser, if you will, and learning that, also learning how to overcome that through norm therapy as well. But now being able to see through and hear what people are telling you and watching their different body languages they're giving you and what they're saying to you, if they're avoiding your question, and all these little things that we learn in our classes. So that was one aspect of it, because that also helped me recognize my own truths even more, and just to take my healing one step deeper, and sinking back into who I truly am. And I think that was a big part of it.
Wonderful answers. Thank you for that question. Now, here's
Yeah,
another
great
question
question.
for you. I love doing this too. I really do. Here's another question. They're curious if you think your experience with abuse could have played out differently had you had access to a resource like norm therapy as you were going through it.
Yeah, most definitely. Because when I was going through it, I remember there not being a lot of resources out there. Couldn't find anything. You found it in the mental health industry, but nothing specific to abuse care, and how to deal with that, because while there is some similarities, there's a lot of differences as well. And you know, that's why I like love what I do in norm therapy, is because I can see the difference it's going to make in so many individuals out there who are needing a hand up from their abuse and their abusive circumstances, and not being able to find it anywhere, and to be able to offer that on a global basis. eh, that's going to be pretty powerful.
Exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm just hearing you say that. I mean, it's just people, we must hear a different testimony every day, at least one or two a day. We
Yeah.
must have thousands of testimonies. It changed my life. I couldn't do this before. Now I'm doing that.
Yeah.
My favorite, one of my favorites till this very day, is when one of our norm therapists matter of fact, she had just taken the lie detector course or module. And she says, you know what happened today? My husband lied to me and I caught him in a lie. I never would have
That
caught
was
him
great.
before. And
Yep.
and his basic answer was, well, I took a shot, But it was kind of cool because they have that kind of positive and healthy relationship that they can get through that. But, and we help people once they do catch their partner in a lie. We say to them things like, that's okay, because lying is just as normal as breathing. It is. Everybody lies. We try not to lie as best we can, but everybody lies. And they lies for those reasons you mentioned earlier. They may be embarrassed or whatever, maybe they're saving a life or they're keeping somebody from maybe they're stopping themselves from getting in trouble. People lie for a variety of reasons, but it isn't necessarily something we want them to do. And I always tell women when they lie to themselves, I always make this statement. I think you've heard me say it before. I say, well, you know that girl, the one with the two black eyes and a bloody lip saying, he loves me. That kind of
Yeah.
lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay, here's another question for you. I'm loving this. Although we have about a minute to go, I apologize. But you have another question. Would you like to hear how, no, they would like to hear how your journey from healing from abuse, what was it like? how did you come out of the victim phase and deal with the negative emotions? I think you've covered this kind of disjointedly in all different areas, but
Sure.
together. But can you put all encapsulate that all in one little statement? How did you just, what did you do to punch hard to get through that wall?
Self-awareness was a big key in that, and that's something that we have a course, a module on self-awareness. We teach others about this because, again, it's one of those life skills you kind of miss out on. It's not really taught in school. If your parents know it, maybe they shared it with you, maybe they didn't. But it's kind of one of those things that you do need. It teaches you about yourself. It teaches you about other people. You start listening to how you speak to others, what you say to them. Your voice, it matters, but it also matters what you're speaking. You can say a lot of words, but it may come out, be perceived wrongly by someone else, and then they go off and they believe something, and then that starts a whole snowball effect going down the wrong path. And you were like, but wait a minute, I meant this, and this is what I meant, this direction. So you start understanding your communication. And because I
Yes.
didn't have a very strong base of communication, again, people pleaser, I was always, yeah, sure, yeah, sure, yeah, sure, all the time. y- you kind of lose yourself in that. So self-awareness was key in that healing. And I'm glad to see so many people gain value out of that through our norm therapy training program. When they take that course and they start to learn, they're like,
It's only
huh,
ten
I
fifty. We
never
got
knew
10
that.
minutes. We got 10. I thought it was 10:58.
Oh,
It's
yeah, yeah.
10:50. I'm good. I'm not 10, 2:50. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good.
Well, good. I thought we had, so we got 9 more minutes. We could take some more questions. This is good. One of the things I want to highlight about something you just said, you know, sometimes when all of this is happening to you and you're coming out of that phase of being abused and you're working your way through it, you not only have to have that, of course, that's self-awareness, but you have to have situational awareness. How do you
Yeah.
think your maturity in situational awareness, how do you think that has played a part in your life as of late?
That was one area where I was fortunate, and my dad taught me self-awareness or situational awareness from a very young age. He was
Wonderful.
in with the fire department, but he was also law enforcement, so he played a dual role. And
Absolutely.
so, and he was very intuitive in that regard. He was always aware of situations, especially when he'd investigate things. He's always, looking at the crowd and looking at what's happening and putting those pieces together. And I kind of, through osmosis, I kind of learned that skill as well, and just developed it over time. And of course, it's really been more of a skill that I can deepen through our norm therapy training, because we teach that as well. And
Absolutely.
when we're in with a victim and survivor, we need to be situationally aware, since we are a virtual world. Maybe there's shadows going on in the background. Well, who's that shadow from? Are they being able to speak what they need to say? And are they not telling you everything that you need to hear? And so it's very helpful in that virtual world, but just in your practical skills in life too, when you go out in your day to day, going shopping, going to the store, going wherever you're going, in your home too. It's a great skill to have.
It absolutely is. I remember, then I'll go to the next question, but I remember that once I was talking with our executive director on the phone. We were engaged in a conversation, and she was just coming back from the store. It was getting dark at night, and we were talking on the phone. And I was asking her about, you got your car keys out already? Are you gonna make your way in and lock your door and da da da, and all that kind of stuff? And she got in and she closed the door and she went and put her bags and she did this and she did that and the other. And then when she got back to the phone and talked to me, first thing out of her mouth was, wow, it's exhausting being situationally aware and safe.
That's true.
It chuckled me so much because it is hard if you've never done it. It's old hat, like your dad. He saw things as a normal function of his existence.
Mhm.
He saw things, he knew how to put them together, and it was no longer exhausting or tasking for him to do that. You have to practice it, audience. So just so you'll know, I want to bring that point up. That was funny. I still laugh at it every time I think about it. Now, we have one question for you again, and then
Right.
we'll start talking about closeout stuff. Um, they're saying to you that you are such a confident person and you have a perpetual smile, calm, and demeanor, and such a positive mindset. What is the key behind all of that positivity?
Again, I think it comes from that truth, that inner knowing, having that inner peace within. I used to always have, and I still do, I have peace signs everywhere, and people used to say to me, well, are you just being that, hey, cool, throwing out the happy vibes and all that? I'm like, no, it's much deeper than that. It comes from within, and you have to have that inner peace within yourself before you can really give that to the outside. And I think for
Mhm.
me, I have that, and that was key, in learning and moving away from that people pleasing mode as well, and having that within myself and know that I'm happy with myself and I'm happy with where I am and where I'm going. And that built a lot of my confidence level as well. And then just knowing that, it's take each day as it comes and have faith in that higher power, whatever you believe in, and knowing that, we're sometimes not in control of that, but we can do our best and just keep, make today better than yesterday and not as good as tomorrow kind of a situation, and do the best you can with what you have.
That's a very well-lived mantra of yours. And I think that everybody should adopt it. And one of the points I want to quickly make about people pleasing, if those of you out there who are listening and you have a friend or it's yourself or someone you know that you care about, and they people please, there's a way you can tell if they're just a nice person who likes pleasing people or if they are a people pleaser. And the way you know this is if they are hurting themselves by pleasing you. Once you begin to hurt yourself pleasing others, then you are a people pleaser and it's only going to get worse. But if you find joy and comfort, because I know people I can't even walk into their house and, hey, you want some food? You want a glass of water? I'll get it for you. Put your feet up over here, sit over here, and do it. And they're just this way, nicest people in the world, never been abused a day in their life. But then you have those people who go, yeah, sure, no problem. But they got a gut ache and they really shouldn't be
Mhm.
going out. Or, every time they're around these people, they get so nervous that they go in a bathroom and have to puke or release themselves in some kind of way because they're so
Yeah.
stressed by these people. When you find yourself hurt and hurting as a people pleaser, that's a problem.
Mm.
If you find that you love what you do, that's good. And one of the things we talk about all the time is relationships. A relationship is just that you relate. We talked about
Yeah.
that earlier. You just relate, but the relationship is different from loving someone. It really is different. Love and relationships are two different things. To love somebody, you have to give in to that love. You have to surrender and, to that exaltation of love itself. You have to put yourself in the most vulnerable place. Love is without compromise or negotiation. So when you're in love with somebody, you shouldn't have to compromise it nor negotiate it. And you darn shouldn't have to make it a part of your relationship. That's where you negotiate in your relationship. And I think when Kim was being abused in her relationship, just from my understanding, that perhaps she had them both working together. And then she had her own love for herself that was being shielded out of her. So that had to be a triple, quadruple whammy. How you made it out of it is true testament to why you're the manager of norm therapy. It just is. When you were chosen, it was like such the blessing and good fortune. And with that, I want to share with everybody, we'll be doing more sessions. And I want to thank, of course, Kim. Carpenter is one of the most amazing people. When you get a chance, reach out to her at Norm Therapy or at Arrow, Abuse Refuge org, and or goarrow.org. Arrow stands for Abuse Refuge Org, by the way, ARO. A lot of people try to find us at ARROW, like the bow and arrow, and they don't get us. But she's such an amazing person, not only to know, but to work with and to have spent time with, been in the trenches with, been in sessions with her with different people. We've listened to some of the most horrific stories on the planet together, and we help people work through their mess and their tragedy. It's been really something, a great relationship. I'm not acting like I don't know her. I'm just being in this mode for the interview process, but I know Kim, she's an amazing human being, and I wouldn't have chosen anyone else or chosen anyone else. So if you enjoyed and got something out of today's new series, The Socialization of Abuse, please show your support by sharing this video, subscribing to our channel, and liking it. And please make a comment, say something good or at least engaging about it. So please go to goarrow.org and normtherapy.com and explore our opportunities and seek help for yourself or someone needing our services. If you're interested in applying, participate in our live sessions as a guest, victim, survivor, or email us at contact@normtherapy.com. Our new Norm Therapy live podcast schedule is as follows: Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again on Thursday, April 11th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I will be interviewing Nicole Leonard. She's a Norm Therapy Intake Specialist Level 6 Advanced. That means she's taking the advanced course. And she's Arrow and Norm Therapy's hiring manager for the whole organization. Truly an amazing human being. She'll tell you all of what you need, who you need to be to become a part of this organization, and how we conduct business. I think we have one of the best working environments on the planet. I want to go back to Kim, and I'll ask Kim to close us out.
It's always a joy to talk to you, Michael, and to help spread our message, not only in what we're saying together, but throughout this live stream, throughout these episodes that we have. It's just a great pleasure to be able to share what we do.
Thank you, Kim. You've been a wonderful guest. I look forward to seeing you in the back office in some meeting or transaction here soon, but wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And thank you for being our first guest of our Socialization of Abuse series. Who better to have? Thank you. I think we have Nicole and then Kelly and a few other people. We'll figure it out. We'll go from there.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon. Everybody, it's
Thank
a
you.
pleasure seeing you out there in online land.